Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Uncle Greg Show podcast. Hey, welcome, and I hope your day and your week is going well. It's your Uncle Greg back again. Now, let me say this up front. I know that the last time I spoke with you guys, I told you the next episode was going to be our monthly musical journey. Well, I'm still going to do it for the month. Don't panic. But I was compelled to put this episode out first because it was dealing with a couple of subjects that need to be discussed. The first being this rise in, call it juvenile violence, in particular, all these freaking kids with these guns killing folk. Now, I talked to you guys about that before, that I don't look at today's crime from a traditional sense. As I always said, you can't apply old school rules to new school problems, and these kids are definitely new school. So that being said, they have to be dealt with in a new school manner, and I'm going to talk about that first. And this came about as a result of that and the mass shootings I spoke about earlier. I was on Isaiah Carey's Isaiah Factor Uncensored on Fox 26. I guess it's on Fox Soul channel as well. You can see that, but I'm going to put the link to the episode if you want to see it, or you can go straight over to TLAC Now, the website, tlacnow.com, and the episode, the YouTube channel, it's on our YouTube channel right now, and you can view it there. And the second thing, which is the most disgusting thing I've read recently, are the 5 no good, corrupt black cops that beat an innocent brother to death. I'm not going to get into too much in that right now. We're going to come back to that. But I'm going to start this off by talking about this rise in gun violence that's going on across the nation with these kids. Our kids. Let me make that clear. They are taking guns and doing everything from shooting their teachers. You know, that 6-year-old boy, they shot his teacher. Yes, he was black. You had an incident where a 14-year-old girl got into a fight with a 12-year-old girl and then shot at her, but missed and killed her 11-year-old brother, just to name a few. Now, it's clear that these crimes, or crimes like this, in my opinion, have reached epidemic proportions. And to say the least, nothing is being done about it. You know, you don't hear anybody from Black Lives Matter addressing this issue. You don't hear it from most of these black organizations, or so-called black organizations. You don't hear them addressing these issues. And they are definitely a problem that's impacting the community, not just our community, it's impacting other people's communities as well. And nobody seems to be offering any type of solution to this problem. Now, there are some questions that come out of this, that come to my mind immediately is, well, where are these kids getting all these guns? Well, the easiest answer, get them from their parents and their parents' homes. You know, the young boy that shot the 10-year-old that shot his mother in the face because she wouldn't buy him a video game, got that gun from her. He took her keychain and that gun was secured. The 6-year-old that shot his teacher, that gun was secured as a parent's gun. The 14-year-old, I told you, I don't know where they got the gun from, but, you know, those are the obvious answers for those, you know, the guns that were used that were, these kids got from their parents. What about all these other guns that we're seeing? I mean, if you are active on social media at all, there are a multitude of videos out there where our people are acting a fool with these guns everywhere, everything from pistols to fully automatic rifles, AK-47s, AR-15, well, fully automatic. I don't know if they're M16s, but similar. And you ask yourself, where are these kids getting these guns? And I call them kids as well, because most of these guys that are perpetrating these crimes are under 20 years of age. Now, Are we as a people going to stand by and get crushed on both ends from our own and those outside of us who are perpetrating crimes and murders against us? That's the question. I know I'm not. I look at it, I take my safety and the safety of my loved ones very seriously, or very serious. So much to the point that I am constantly looking at situations when I leave my house and I'm assessing potential threats, because it seems like there's so many. You can't go anywhere outside without the potential of a gunfight breaking out. And the problem is, even though you may not be the intended target, which is the case in the overwhelming majority of these shootings, you are potentially going to be collateral damage. And that's what people have to start thinking about when they're out and about. I think about it all the time. And as I said, I believe I've always, ever since I got involved with law enforcement and other things, and as it relates to defense and training, I've always adopted the philosophy that anybody can kill you. And that seems to have shown, what's going on in the world today, it seems to be extremely true and extremely likely. Just think about this. You had a 6-year-old shoot his teacher. That's real young on the spectrum, age scale. Let's go all the way to the other end. In one of the mass shootings in California, I believe the Monterey Park shooting, that perpetrator was 72. Now, that's a wide age range from one extreme to the other, just to show you that anybody that falls within that range can kill you. That's sad. And that's not the youngest perpetrator on record. The youngest perpetrator is actually, if I want to say 5, and it's possible that they were 4 who actually shot someone to death. So, as my father says, it just shows to go you that anybody can kill you. And you have to be on your guard all the time. So think about that, and think about what we can be doing, what we could be doing, and what we should be doing to come up with some type of solution. I'm thinking about it. I have my opinions. I'm not going to express them right now. As a matter of fact, I've gotten in touch with, they got in touch with me after seeing the broadcast on television with some brothers in law enforcement that actually want to sit down with me and have a discussion about potential solutions. And I'm more than willing to sit down with them. I just let them know up front. Don't think I'm going to come with some type of slap on the wrist or soft solution, because these are desperate times, and desperate times require desperate actions. When you look at some of these shootings and the young perpetrators, the focus always goes to, well, it's the parents' fault, let's punish the parents. Now, I don't totally disagree with that, but even at 6 years of age, there has to be some type of consequence. They're telling me, we can't charge him as a juvenile because he's too young. Well, guess what? We need to change those laws and start charging these kids. One of the things you'll notice if you watched the Isaiah show, I'm on a panel. It's 3 of us, myself, Isaiah, and a Hispanic guy that owns a gun store. And we've been on the show at the same time, probably about 3 or 4 times. And, just to let y'all know, that was actually my 50th appearance on television. Not on the Isaiah show, but on television overall. 50. I count them. I keep all my videos. Whenever I'm on television, asked to be the crime and safety expert, speak about these things. But congratulations to me. But anyway, one of the things that the gun store owner brought up was the fact that he is, I'm trying to remember how he put it. He said he's a Second Amendment advocate, but that's not the term he used. And he believes that any gun law is unconstitutional. And he says the best solution to these gun crimes are to, one, enforce the laws on the books. And when we're dealing with kids, we need to put gun safety in school and gun education in school to teach these kids about guns and the damage they can do. Now, what he is spouting is the typical Republican, I say Republican, what's the difference? Republican solution to gun violence, which is no solution at all. And this is the same tired rhetoric which they get directly from the NRA that they've been espousing for dang near 30 years. And guess what? Nothing's changed. They've been in power several times in that 30-year period. Nothing's changed. It's only gotten worse. And see, the problem is, in a lot of instances, education doesn't work. If education does anything when it comes to gun safety and gun violence, it creates a greater fascination within children to get their hands on a gun. It's no different than them watching, they're inundated with violence on television, obviously, in the movies, and over the internet that they can see on their own, even when their parents don't know what they're watching, and video games. Everything's violent. I want to see if this is real. When you shoot somebody, does it look like it looks in the video game? Or does it look like it looks in the movies or on television? There are kids out there like that. Then there are kids out there who are just plain crazy. And I believe that's that 6-year-old's problem, because he had a host of mental issues. And because he even made the statement that he actually wanted to set his teacher on fire and watch her die. Now, that's sad. That's sad and pathetic. And you can't tell me that people in his family weren't aware of his issues. As a matter of fact, the parents had a program in place that one of them had to be with him at school at all times. And that day, neither one of them showed up. That was just the sad chain of events that led up to the shooting. And I said before, from the smallest things, the biggest problems can grow. Now, I want you to look at this and the failures that went on the part of the parents and on the school. First of all, the parents didn't show up. Okay, that's one. Second of all, the school was made aware of the fact that this kid had a gun or was bringing a gun to school and was planning to shoot the teacher, they were made aware of this no less than 3 times, according to the reports in the media. 3 times. That's 2. Thirdly, they never told the teacher. They never gave her a heads up that this is a potential. And ironically enough, I am on a because I design safety programs for teachers in schools, but I follow a lot of teachers' social media accounts and sites, but there's one in particular where teachers air their grievances. And after this incident happened, this site was inundated with complaints about how many of the teachers had been in this very situation, and the school never told them. Okay. Had never told these teachers that there was a threat on their life from a student, not just a student, but an irate parent. But I digress. Back to the 4th failing. The 4th failing is the fact that they searched this kid's book bag and they didn't find anything. Which means either that kid passed that gun off to someone else, it was on his person, he couldn't have hid it in his locker because he hadn't gotten in school yet, or it was still in that book bag and they just missed it. In any event, all those failures led to this teacher getting shot. And thank God she survived, and thank God no one else got injured. But back to my original point, the fact that kid crossed the line when he brought that gun into school, that's one. But when he actually took it out to try and end somebody's life, I'm sorry. If I had been in that school and I had seen it and I was armed, I'd have dropped that kid in a heartbeat. Because I'd rather deal with the guilt of shooting a kid, a murderous or a murdering intended kid, than think about live with the fact that this kid shot innocent people and gunned them down. In some of my training, for example, I have videos that I use in the training. I have one in particular out of Mexico. You might have seen it or you might have heard about it. And this kid in this video, I can't remember the grade. It's in elementary school. He's either a 5th or a 6th grader. This kid just out of the blue gets up from the chair, gets up from his table in his classroom, walks over to his book bag where all the book bags are being stored, pulls out a gun and shoots at no less than 5 or 6 kids in his classroom, including the teacher. And I want to say he shot 3 or 4 of them. But here's the most interesting part. When he got through shooting them, he turned the gun on himself and shot himself in the head. Now, you ask yourself, what makes these young kids do this? When did they get to this? And this video was from years ago. When did it get this bad? Well, it really doesn't matter when it started to turn this way. But that's what we'll talk about. That's what everybody talking about. How did it get this way? What's this kid's motivation? Why did he why are they so violent? Forget all that. That's not going to save anybody's life. Looking at problems in hindsight and trying to get some type of perspective on what motivated people to do the evil that they did does not solve the problem. And it doesn't even prevent it from happening in the future, because even if you come up with a solution, guess what? You don't put any type of laws or any actions in place to mitigate the potential threat. You just know why. They tell you no one is half the battle. Well, what's the other half? Stopping it all together. That's the total solution. But in any event, we need to be focusing on how to deal with this problem, to cut down on it. When I put my teacher safety program, what every teacher should know, when I put that program together on my TLAC site, one of the things I did was focus on what teachers can do on their own to protect themselves when it's obvious that in a lot of cases, these school boards, these school districts are totally disinterested in doing an adequate job of protecting the teachers, let alone the students, because some of them they don't care about protecting the students. And I'm going to tell you why. People want, well, no, school districts, well, obviously all of them are not like that, but there's enough of them out there that they're a concern. And I'm going to tell you why school districts are like that. It's very simple. A lot of school districts have adopted the same posture that corporate America, a lot of businesses in corporate America have adopted. And I know this personally because I go out into corporate America and I do safety training, preventive safety training. And the bottom line is that there are a lot of companies that see their employees as being disposable, expendable. Therefore, they do not want to take the steps necessary to do a good job of protecting their employees. They want to do what I call play the odds. Well, they said, they figure, the odds of us having a workplace violence or a shooting are very slim. So let's play the odds. Let's just hope nothing ever happens. And through that, if they implement any type of safety program or safety training, they are going to do just enough to get by, if anything at all. And I've experienced this countless times. As a matter of fact, when I go out and conduct training now, you come to me and you want me to consult and build a training program for your company or your school district. I tell you up front, if you're not totally committed to keeping these people safe or these students safe, I'm not your guy. Find somebody else. I don't do just enough to get by, just to grow a paycheck. That's not me, because my reputation on the line is one thing, but my conscience, knowing that I built something that was totally inadequate, is something that I just couldn't live with. Now, back to what I said originally about why schools do or don't do what they're supposed to when it comes to school safety. Schools have adopted, as I said, the same posture that a lot of business in corporate America, where image is everything. And we do everything we can to make sure we don't look bad. And if we implement any type of preventive safety measure, that could make us look bad. That could send the message that our schools aren't safe. Well, guess what? They aren't safe. Something I talked to a group of educators about years ago, I'm talking a good 6-7 years ago, was the fact that everybody was addressing or trying to address the school shooters, shootings in the school, and how best to handle that. And I told them at that time that you're not looking at the total picture. I said, there are so many other areas where you're vulnerable that you need to be looking at. You need to have multiple solutions in place in various locations and throughout the entire school campus. Not just the school campus, because I told them one of the places where they're most vulnerable, and no one ever talks about this, is school buses. School buses are the easiest targets. And guess what? Now you're starting to see that. Somebody's finally figured it out. Now, I've never spoken about that in public before because I didn't want to put it out there, because there was always some nut to, oh man, I never thought about that. But guess what? Give them enough time, they'll figure it out on their own, and they have. And during that time since I've spoken about that, schools have done pretty much absolutely nothing. The bus drivers I talk to, they tell you they've never seen any type of training in case a problem happens on the bus. That's going to and from school. The kid had he had a gun in his backpack. These kids carry guns in their backpack. If you look at the majority of shooters that are internal in school situations, where did they have the gun? In the backpack. I wrote an article I put out on LinkedIn a couple of years ago called From Backpacks to Bullets, where I talked about we need to do a much better job of searching these kids' backpacks, because that's where the threat is. And kids do have telltale signs when they're carrying a weapon in school. And I mean, it doesn't have to be behavioral. It's physical. Because depending on what they carry, if they're carrying ammo, if they're carrying a heavy weapon, it's going to affect the way they carry the book bag. It's going to affect the way they walk. Now, you talk about behavior. If I know I'm carrying a weapon in school and I plan to use it, I don't want to be separated from my book bag. I want to be able to get to it as quickly as possible. You need to pay attention to that type of behavior. You tell the kid to put his book bag down, put his book bag in the locker, and if he's resistant, you see any form of resistance, or he's overprotective when it comes to the book bag, there's a potential problem. You need to do something about that. All right, that's all the free advice I'm giving on that subject. More to come. Now, let's move on and talk about these dirty black cops. Okay, in case you were unaware, 19 days ago on January 7th in Memphis, Tennessee, 5 black Memphis police officers who are part of this newly formed anti-crime unit pulled over a young 29-year-old black man named Tyree Nichols, allegedly for reckless driving. Okay. And during the stop, they beat this man so severely that when they transported him to the hospital, they put him on life support immediately. And 3 days later, they removed it and he died. Okay. This is disgusting. This is deplorable. But most importantly, it's a disgrace. Now, the 5 police officers have all been arrested. They're all been booked into jail. Now, think about this. I want you to think about how quickly they locked these guys up, these 5 black officers, after being accused of beating up someone to death. You've never seen the justice system ever move that fast on white officers. I'm talking 19 days. Look back on all the incidents where white police officers were accused of beating a black person to death and see how long it took before they were locked up, or let alone charged with anything. But anyway, the 5 officers, I'm going to name them so you know these names. Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin III, which means there are 2 other ones out there running around loose. Desmond Miller Jr. and Justice Smith were all fired shortly after the beating. And as I said, they were all members of a fairly new specialized anti-crime unit, which really makes me wonder if these guys were in an unmarked car or unmarked cars. But anyway, the fact, as I said, this is disgusting. This is deplorable. This is a disgrace, because these guys beat an innocent man to death. Now, I don't know if all 5 of them participated in the beating or a few of them, but in any event, no one had the human decency to try to stop what was going on. Let me make this clear, because I feel worse about black cops brutalizing our own more than white cops. And I'll tell you why. With white cops, we have an expectation from white police officers, or all police officers, to treat everyone equally and fairly under the law, despite the community. But when you have black officers that don't do that, and I've known a few, you are far worse, because you prey on the community that you come from. We have a higher expectation for you. I knew that when I picked up the badge. My old man knew that. We knew that the way we were viewed in the community, right or wrong, good or bad, was far different than how white cops were viewed. There was a higher, and there still is, a higher expectation for us and from us in the performance of our duties. And these guys failed. And when I was checking out, leaving the law enforcement community, I noticed the trend that these younger black officers that we're hiring had the potential to be this way for 2 reasons. One, they were more disconnected from the race, definitely disconnected, which has been a continuing trend in the younger generation. And 2, you were hiring cops or people that were coming from a cultural gangster hip hop mindset that have the same, hear me clearly, they have the same mindset that these thugs have that are out there killing our own. The same mindset. Think about that. So, I say this in closing. 1, I hope they throw these guys under the jail. And 2, don't take for granted, just because you're being stopped by a black cop, that you're any safer than being stopped by a corrupt white one. It's a crapshoot, because you don't know which cop you're getting. It's your Uncle Greg. Be safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Uncle Greg Show podcast. Be sure that you like, share, and subscribe this podcast on all social media platforms. And if you have any comments, feel free to email. The links and details for all social media platforms and email address for the Uncle Greg Show podcast are contained in the details section of each podcast. Thank you for listening, and be safe.